Okay, Bez Hashem, we're going to continue in Mesachas Sanhedrin. We are holding on Daf Samech Bet Amud Bet. The bottom line, last word, Gufa. So 62b3, the last word on the right side in English, Gufa. Gufa means the text itself stated. We mentioned above, Amar Rabbi Ami, said Rabbi Ami, Zibach v'kiter v'nisach v'elam echon, einachai v'la'achas. If someone accidentally brought a carbon and brought a ketoret and brought wine to an avodah zarah in one lapse of unawareness, he only brings one carbon. So Amar Rabbi, one carbon chatos. Amar Rabbi, my Talmud Rabbi Ami. What's the reason of Rav Ami? Why does he say only one? So Amar Kra, because the pasuk says lo to them. So you can take a look at the whole pasuk in Torah Shalom Aleph on the page. Lo tishtachave velo to them, and do not serve them. So it makes it as if it's one. Hakatav asan kulan avodat achat. It makes all types of avoda, all types of services to the avodah zara as one. Therefore, he brings one carbon. Mara says, "I Amar Abaya Hachi." Did Abaya really say like this? V'ha Amar Abaya, but it was Abaya who said, "Shalosh hishachavod ba'avod kachavim lama." Why does the Torah say 3 times not to bow down to an avodah zara? So if you take a look in the note in the article number 5, it's based on the Rashi. He says, where are these 3 sources of not bowing down? The first one that Rashi brings is from the 10 Commandments in Parshas Yisro. Lo tishtachaveh lahem. Don't bow down. And then later on in Sefer Shemos, ki lo tishtachaveh le'el acher. Lo tishtachaveh le'elohehem. Rashi does make one more comment that there is one more don't bow down, and that's mentioned in Parshat Ve'et Hanan, where we repeat the second of the 10 Commandments, right? The 10 Commandments is repeated there. We don't bring that pasuk because you're not learning anything new from there. It's just a repetition of the original commandments, says Rashi. So you have 3 psukim that say, don't bow down to the Zara. Why do you have 3? And this is what Abaya was learning. And Abaya said, Achat likedarko, one to teach us that if it was the avodah zara's way of bowing down to it, and that was its avodah, that was its service, and a person did it, nischayev v'chatas. And if it wasn't avodah zara, and it wasn't its way of worship, was not to bow down to it, and the person bowed down to it is bringing chatas v'achas and want to tell us that each avodah is separate. So this is like similar, like we learned last week about Shabbos. Remember, you had Shabbos, and we said that each malacha is a separate malacha. If a person knew it was Shabbos and he did different malachos, you have to bring a different korban chatas for each one. So same thing here, says Abaya. When it comes to avodah zara, you have the hishtachaveh 1, kedarka, hishtachaveh 2, shaloi kedarka, hishtachaveh 3, to tell us that each service is separate, and you would need 3 karbanos. So how can Abaya say loita of them means to include them all in one, when he himself says each service is separate, and you have to bring a separate korban for each one? So the Gemara answers, L'devarav de Rabbi Ami ka'omar. When Abaya was saying lo to of them, he wasn't saying his opinion of lo to of them, and that's the and you only bring one korban for 3 types of services to Avodah Zarah. Rather, he was saying Rav Ami. You want to know what his opinion is? He's learning it from lo to of them. That's what he's learning it. But I don't hold like this because I hold the 3 shachaves, and the third one. 30 shtachim, the third bow down is l'chalik, is to separate between each service. Each service requires its own korban chadas. So machlekes Abaya and Rav Ami, okay, and we already saw the halacha last time that it all depends, right? If you know the avodah zara is aser versus not knowing that avodah zara is aser, right? The avodah, if you know that avodah zara is aser, and you do these different services, and you have to bring a different korban for each service that you did. But if you didn't know this avodah zara was also, and you did a bunch of different services, then you would only bring 1 korban. That we saw already last week. That was the halacha there. Okay, now Gufa Amar Baya. Now, in Abaya's opinion, right, that you have to bring the 3 psukim teach us 3 different things. Why do I have three? So Abaye said, Likadarko. One tells us if that's the way and you did it, then you're chayiv. V'achad shleikadarko. One tells us if it's not its proper mode and you did it, also chayiv. V'achal zechalik. And one to separate between each of the services. Now the Gemara's question is on the kedarko. 1 second. You're telling me I need a pasuk of hishtachave, of bowing down, to tell us that for serving of the zara in its way that it's served, you're chayav. But why do I need that? Because likadarko mi'echa ya'avdu hagoyim ha'elu nafka. There's a pasuk in the Torah that says that the Jews, and you take a look at Torah or Shalom in Bet, right? Hishamir lecha, be careful, don't follow the goyim. That you're going to destroy me, panecha. Maybe you're going to ask, Lamor, Eicha, Yavdu, Hagoyim, how do they serve these avodah zaras? And you want to do the same thing they did. So that's a pasuk that says you're learning how to serve their avodah zara. So you don't need the word hishtachava to teach me kedarko. Kedarko, the proper way, the way that avodah zara is served, I learned from this pasuk that says don't ask to learn how to serve them. So what do we do? So Ela acha kedarka v'shalei kedarka v'acha shalei kedarka v'acha s'chalei. Okay. So when it means achas kedarka, doesn't mean kedarka. It means kedarka v'shalei kedarka. Okay, what do we mean? Meaning, if the service for that avodah zarah is to bow down, then I don't need that pasuk, the hishtachava, to teach me, because I know that from the other pasuk that says eicha, how do they serve their avodah zarah? Rather, it's when it's kedarka v'shalei kedarka, when it's its way, but it's not its way. Meaning, it's an avodah zarah that you do respectful actions to it, but the bowing down is not one of the respectful actions that's done to it. There's other respectful actions you do to it. Give it whatever you want to imagine, kiss it, hug it, whatever it is. But bowing down is not one of them. But now you bow down to it. Now it makes sense because it's one of those respectful actions, but it's not actually its prescribed mode of service. So it's kedarka, it's within the general frame of serving it, and it's not its actual way, v'shalei kedarka, and it's not its proper way of service. And then the other one, v'shalei kedarka, that would be, for example, if it's a Baal Peor, right? You have to defecate on it, and you bow down to it instead. That second lachal Talmud is even there, even though it's not even respectful because it's not the proper way to respect it. Still, that pasuk will teach me that even if it's not its proper way of service, you're still going to be hayav. Okay, and then the third shtachah tells each one is separate, and we saw that that's the truth. That's the halacha. Each one is separate. If you did different services to the avodah zarah, knowing that the avodah zarah is aser, you would have to bring different carbon chatas for each one if you did it by accident, and if you didn't know the avodah zarah was aser for whatever reason, and the Gemara dealt with it last week. How's that case, right? But then in that case, you bring only one carbon because your mistake is thinking that the avodah zarah was okay. All right, now we move on. So we finish our sugya on this avodah zarah and the chalik. Now the chalik took a couple of weeks to do this. So now we're going to move on to another sugya, another topic. The Mishnah said, "Hamikabelo alav be'elohav." Someone accepted an avodah zarah to be his god. Ha'aymer, he said, "Ha'aymer loy eliata." He said to the avodah zarah, "You are my god." Okay. Now, Amar Nachman, Amar Rabba, Baravua, Amar Rav. Kivan she'amar loy eliata chaya. Once he says, "You are my god," he's already hayav. He's already hayav. The Gemara says, "Hayav lamai." What is he obligated for? What is he liable for? If you're going to say, if he did it on purpose, and you have witnesses and all that, and you want to kill him, matritan he. That was already a Mishnah. So what is Rav Nachman coming to tell us? That's our Mishnah. Mishnah said if he did it on purpose, and he said, Eliato, we kill him. Elul carbon. Right? It's coming to tell us he did it by accident. He did it. He didn't want to do it, but he unintentionally did it. So he brings a korban. Gemara says, now, is this really true? That just because he said, this is my God, he brings a carbon. Va'afil rabbanon. Is this go according to the rabbanon? V'hatani, but it was taught. Eno hayav ela davar sheyesh bo ma'aseh. a person is not hayav in bringing a korban hatat unless he did an action. What was his action here? He was just talking. He just said, "This is my God." He didn't do a ma'aseh. He didn't do an action that required him to bring a korban hatat. And that was shish ma'aseh. Kigon, for example, sipuach v'shachave v'nisuch. He brought a carbon to the Avodah Zarah. He bowed down to the Avodah Zarah. He poured wine to the Avodah Zarah. Ramish Lagesh, Mantan Nishtach. Ramish Lagesh said, wait. This bowing down, that's not really a Maisa, right? Who says that's not really an action? Now, I know you're saying bowing down is an action. You're bowing down. You're doing something with your body. But at the same point, it's like it's moving your lips. It's not a significant action. It's not like you're taking an animal and shafting it, taking the blood and sprinkling it. And it's not like you're taking wine and pouring it. It's not like you're bringing up a ketoret to it. It's a little different in the service. So, who said that bowing down is also considered that you have to bring a korban hatat if you did it by accident? Rabbi Kivahi, it's Rabbi Akiva. The Amar, lo be'inan ma'aseh. That he said, "Lo bi'nan ma'aseh, I don't need a full ma'aseh, even less than a significant action, also to bring a korban hatat." So what do we see from here? Miklal Rabbanan savre bi'inan ma'aseh. Comes out the rabbis say you need a ma'aseh, and Rabbi Akiva says not. So when Rav Nachman was saying that if a person says, "This is my God," he's hayav, and he's hayav to bring a korban. Who is that according to? It's only according to Rabbi Akiva. It's not according to the Rabbanan. Because the Rabbanan say you have to have an actual action, not just bowing down. It has to be an actual action. If it's not bowing down, then definitely not just moving your lips. It has to be an actual action. No actual action, according to the Rabbanan, you're not hayav a korban hatat. So what does he mean? So Gemara says, Ki ka'amar nami. When he said it, that's what he meant. Rabbi Akiva ka'amar. He's saying, according to Rabbi Akiva, this opinion that Rav Nachman said, that a person who says, "This is my God," he's chayav to bring a korban, that's only according to Rabbi Akiva. He says that's enough of an action. But according to the Chachamim, it's not requiring a korban because it's not enough of an action. Now the Gemara says, one second. Rabbi Akiva, is this also go according to Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Akiva doesn't need to say that lip moving is enough of an action in order to be hayav hatat. Pshitat, he will learn it from elsewhere. Simply, hainu megadef, because he's like a blasphemer. It's as if he's saying this is God and that's not God. He's making fun of God. So he's hayav because of being a megadef, being a blasphemer, not because of the action of his lips. The Gemara says, "Ma'u detema." No. Can't compare that. Ad kan lo mechayev bekiva korban elo megadef. When does Rabbi Akiva say you need a korban? When he actually curses Hashem, when he's actually blaspheming Hashem. Dichtiv bekaret, because the pasuk says if he does that, he gets karet. Right? If a person did it on purpose, he gets karet. So if he does it by accident, he'll bring a hatat. Aval hacha, but here, where he just says, "This is my God," there is no pasuk that says he gets karet for that. That's not the same thing as blaspheming to that degree. So emalo, I would say no, he doesn't have to bring a korban. Mashmalan, no, we're gonna learn it from somewhere else. The itkush, ichtiv. It says in pasuk when they made the egel hazav. Let's take a look at the whole pasuk. It's in Torah Shalom Gimel. It says saru maher ben aderech. They quickly left the right path. The shetzivita that I command them also them. They egel maasechet. They made themselves an egel. They shachuloi and they're bowing down to it. Vizbechuloi and they're bringing korban to it. But Yomer and this saying Elu Elohecha Yisrael Asher Elucha Meretz Mitzrayim. This is the your gods that took you out of Mitzrayim. So what is it being? It's making a hekesh. It's making a similarity to Veishtachavulo Veyizbechulo. It's saying the one who brings a korban and bows down to it. It's similar. V'yoyim Eila. And those are the ones that says, Elo Ech Yisrael, these are your gods. So the person who, the pasuk is comparing the one who says this is your God to the person who brings a carbon. And for a carbon, for sure, you need to bring a carbon chatat because it's an actual action. So saying it is also requiring a korban because it's compared in the same pasuk. It's compared in the same pasuk. You are my God is liable to karet if he sins intentionally, and is liable to bring a chatat if he sins unwittingly. So that's the way we learn, because we're making a hekesh between saying that this is your God and bringing a korban to the avodah zarah. So we'll have the same dinim. Okay, so it comes out that that a person who says this is my God, he's going to be hayav korban. He's being hayav korban. Why? Because we're comparing saying it, this is my God, to bringing an actual korban to the avodah zarah. All right, so that's the maskana over there. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, it's very interesting when he says the pasuk that we just read. V'yomer Elo Hech Yisrael Asher Elucha. This is the God. This is your God who took you out of Mitzrayim. Eretz Mitzrayim. So it says over here, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Imale Vav Shebeholucha. If it wasn't for the Vav in the word He'elucha, which makes it a Lashon Rabbim, makes it a plural language, then the Jews would have been entirely destroyed when they made the Egel. This Vav is in the word He'elucha is the saving grace that saved them. What does this mean? Because it's not, let me first explain. It's not like they replaced God. They said Lashon Rabbim, meaning there's an Egel Azav, and there's also God. So it's not like they try to replace God. And therefore, that's why they weren't completely destroyed, because it wasn't trying to replace Hashem. That's what Rabbi Yochanan said. We know this is a very big problem to learn it this way, because, first of all, that was whole. Remember Eliyahu Hanavi and Har Carmel? Eliyahu Hanavi and Har Carmel, he took all those people who were serving the Baal and told them, you can't jump back and forth between God and Baal. Either choose Hashem or choose the Baal. You can't live a mixed confusion of God and some other power. It's apikarsis. It's wrong. So how can Rabbi Yochanan say that that's their saving grace? So let's go a little further to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's opinion over here. Let's go. Kitanoi. It's actually Mahoket Tanaim. Aharim Omrim. The others say, and this is Rabbi Yochanan's opinion, Ilma Levav Shebehalucha. If it didn't say the Vav in He'alucha, and you being brought up, Lashon Rabbim, in Hayevur Hashem She'isa Kaleh, then the Jews would have been killed, because then they would have been replacing Hashem. But they took Hashem with something else, not so bad. That's Rabbi Yochanan. Ahirim. Amar lo Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai says, I don't know what you guys are talking about. If someone takes Hashem and makes him a partner with something else, ne'ekar min ha'olam, he is torn from the world. Shene'emar b'ti la'Hashem levado, only to Hashem alone. There's no such thing as saying, oh, it's not so bad because they didn't replace God. They put God with the Egel Azov. That's terrible. Ilmat tamud lomar asher ha'alucha. Ilmat tamud lomar asher ha'alucha. What does that mean? She'ivui elahot harbe. Is that they wanted, their saving grace was what? Is that they wanted many avodah zaras. What? That's what Shimon Bar Yochai. Shimon Bar Yochai says, you know what saved them? They didn't get destroyed Egel Azav? Because He'alucha means they wanted many avodah zaras. How is that any helpful? So the way the Mefarshim explain is that according to Shimon Bar Yochai, they said Hashem is Hashem, and He is the highest power. V'zeh emet. We're not arguing on that. But at the same time, we have to realize that Hashem gave powers to the sun, Hashem gave powers to the moon, Hashem gave powers to the stars, to the earth, to the wind, to the mountains, and each one is deserving of its own service. Right? That's how the whole form of the Zarah started in the first place, the Rambam says, right? is that they started serving what they call the ministers of Hashem. They're the ministers of Hashem. They also deserve respect. And one thing led to the next, and be careful does that. So says Shabbat Yochai, they never ever, what's it called, deny Hashem. They say Hashem is the highest. But then they said we want to serve other Avodah that are ministers of Hashem. Just give me 1 second. Let me just 1 second. Okay, fine. Now let's move on to the next sugya that we have over here. Aval hamigafef ma'amenashek hamachabed v'hamarbetz. The Mishnah said, someone who kisses, someone who sweeps, someone who sprinkles in front of the Avodah Zarah. He kisses, he hugs, he sweeps in front of it, he sprinkles water next to it. He treats the Avodah Zarah nicely, right? The Gemara said it's a lav, it's a negative commandment. Okay? Then it also said you're not allowed to swear or take a vow in the name of Avodah Zarah. All right, so starts the Gemara. Ki ata Rav Dimi, when Rav Dimi came to Bavel, Amar Rabbi Elazar, he said in the name of Rabbi Elazar, Ad kulam loke, for hugging, kissing, sweeping, sprinkling, for actions that are given as respectful to the Avodah Zarah, you give them makot, you give them the lashes. Chutz, except for mahanoder bishmo, b'mekayim bishmo, except for one who takes a vow or swears in the name of Avodah Zarah. Gemara says, why is that? Why are we differentiating between the action to just speaking? What's the difference between a person who swears or vows in the name of Avodah Zarah? The lucky that you're not giving him lashes, because it's a negative commandment that doesn't have an action, right? It's just speaking. You cannot give lashes if you're just speaking. You have to have an action. There's no action. But these other ones also, even the ones that are actions, lav shibechlalot. It's a lav that it's shibechlalot, meaning it's a negative prohibition that's not specific, but it's a general prohibition, right? So Rashi says we have a couple of psukim that we can possibly learn this from that tells us not to be respectful to the Avodah Zarah. So kissing, sweeping, sprinkling, hugging, none of them is mentioned. None of them is mentioned beferush, specifically in the Torah. Rather, it says, don't follow the alien gods, don't turn to idols, and from there we're learning it. So therefore, you cannot give makot. That's the Gemara's question. How can you say give makot on those, the ones that they do in action? But it's a lav sheb'chalot. It comes from a general prohibition. It is not a specific sin in the Torah. And how do we know this? We don't give lashes for generalized prohibition. The Tanya, as it's taught in the Braita, if a person shachted an animal, completely shachted, and the animal is still moving around, that you're not allowed to eat it, right? Even though it's no longer ever menachai, it's not considered meat from a live animal. It's not live anymore. Still, you can't eat it. Why do we know that? Don't eat it when it still has its life force in it. Dam being life force. Don't eat on its blood. You cannot eat the meat of a korban if its blood is still needing to be sprinkled in the mikdash, right? You need to finish the service with the blood before you can eat it. Again, from the same words, lo tachlu al adam. Further, how do we know if someone gets killed by betin? Not only are the relatives not allowed to mourn him, they're not allowed even to have the sudat havrah. The sudah, when they come back from the burial, usually they give them an egg, right? That's that you're not allowed to give these people who lost their relative to a court that killed him based on his sins. Why? Talmud Lomar, lo tachlu al adam. Cannot eat on the blood. His blood was over his head. He did a sin. He got killed. You cannot eat now. You don't make the su'udah for him. Rabbi Akiva omer, manayan l'sanhedrin sharagu et hanevesh. She'en tomin kulam kula oto hayom. That kum kula oto hayom. How do you know that a bedin that killed somebody is not allowed to eat the entire day? Mulumar lo tachlu al adam. Says don't eat on his blood. You killed someone, you have to kill him. You still can't eat that entire day. Amar Ibn Yohanan. Instead of Yohanan, as hadala ben sorer more menayin. For a ben sorer more, right? This 13 to 13.5-year-old boy who's stealing, eating, and drinking, right? Which is the whole next parak in Masechah Sanhedrin is going to deal with sorer more. How do you know? Where do you have his azhara? Where do you have his warning? That you warn him. Talmud Lomar, lo tachlu al adam. Don't eat over the blood. We tell him if you're going to eat again, steal, eat meat, drink wine like this, you're going to kill yourself. You're going to get blood on your head. You're going to put yourself into danger. Lo tachlu al adam. That's the warning. V'amar Rabbi Avin bar Hiya, v'yitem Rabbi Avin bar Kahana, ad kulam, al kulam eno lokeh. On all of these, you cannot give makot. Why? Because this lo tachlu adam teaches a lot of halachot, but it's a general prohibition. Lo tachlu adam, don't eat on the blood. Now you're interpreting it in many other ways, so therefore you cannot give makot in them because they're not specific prohibitions in the Torah. So same thing here. Same thing here. Hugging, kissing, schmitzing, sweeping, sprinkling, is not specific. It's just a general prohibition of not showing honor to the avodah zarah. So maybe you should not get you should not get makot. The Gemara says, "Ela." You have to switch around. What happened? When Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, he said in the Rabbi Elazar, "Ad kulan enu and all of them you don't give makot because they're all lav shivul palot, right? They're all general prohibitions. Putz min hanodeh bishmo, they kayem bishmo. But who do you give? Who do you give makot? You give makot to the one who vows in the name of Avodah Zarah or swears in the name of Avodah Zarah. The says, what? Okay, what's the difference that these hugging, kissing, embracing, you don't give makot? Because you're saying it's a general prohibition, it's not specific. Therefore, you can't give makot. But these two should not get makot. Because speaking is not a maaseh, it's not an action, and you only can get makot for doing some action, avidah with an action. The Gemara says true, but who could it be Yehuda? This is like Rabbi Yehuda. The Amar, Rabbi Yehuda says, "Lav she'en bo maaseh lokin alav." Someone who did a avidah that doesn't have a action, he still gets makot on it. How do we see this? Is Hanya, because he learned in the bright law to do not keep the Pesach meat overnight till the morning. It says don't leave it. Then it says if you leave it, you have to burn it. So it tells us don't do something, and then it says what to do in the morning. Okay. So then lo mash and lo kinala. Therefore, don't give him a code because he has a asay to fix up his lo asay. So therefore, you can't give him a code. Rabbi Yaakov says, no, that's not the reason why we don't give him makot. Lo min Hashem huzeh, el mishum dehavale lav she'en bo ma'aseh. The reason is not because there's an asay afterwards that you don't give him makot, but rather because leaving the meat is just leaving the meat. You're not doing an action to leave the meat. You're just leaving the meat. So it's a lav that has no action. And b'chol lav she'en bo ma'aseh ain't like a lav. If it doesn't have an action, you can't give makot. From here we see the Yehuda Savar, the real Yehuda holds, Lokinala, a lav that doesn't have a maaseh, you do give makot. The reason by Pesach you don't give makot is because you have an asay, mitzvah asay that comes and it tells you to burn it. So therefore you don't give makot. If you can fix it up, you can fix it. Therefore you don't get makot. But Rabbi Yehuda holds on the surface level that that a lav that has no maaseh is subject to makot. Okay, fine. So far, so good. So you have this machloket is according when Rabban said this, he was saying it b'shem Rabbi Yehuda. All right, let's do a little more, and then we'll finish for the day. Let's see here. Hanoder bishmo v'mekayim bishmo harei ze belo ta'aseh. Hanoder bishmo v'mekayim bishmo. Swearing in the name and vowing in the name. And now, how do we know it's asur? Where do we know it's asur to say the name of the god? I swear in the name of whatever Avodah Zarah. I vow in the name of the Zarah. Why? What's the asur there? What's the isur? The Tanya. It was told in Braita. It says in Mishpatim, V'shem Elohim achirim lo taskiru. You're not allowed to mention the name Avodah Zarah. Shelo yomar adam l'chavero. A person cannot tell his friend, Shemor li b'tzad Avodah Zarah ploni. Wait for me by this Avodah Zarah over there, saying the name of Avodah Zarah. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to bring the name Avodah Zarah to your lips. Lo yishma al picha. It should not be heard through you. What does that mean? Shelo yidor b'shmo. The one should not vow his name in the idol. V'lo yikayim b'shmo. V'lo yigrom la'achirim. Sheidru b'shmo yikayim b'shmo. You cannot force someone else. You can't cause someone else to say a swear in the name of Allah because of you. Davar acher lo yishma al picha. Should not be heard on your mouth. Lo yishma al picha. Azharan lemesit umadiach. He's also telling us shouldn't be heard through you, meaning you should not. It's a warning for those who try to instigate people to serve Avodah Zarah. So mesit is if you try to instigate an individual. We already dealt with this in the past. Umadiach is someone who tries to instigate a whole city to become an ir hanidachat, to go against Hashem. Gemara says mesit b'hadya ketibah. I don't need it to teach me for the individual because it says if someone did this, all of the Jews would see and learn and never do it again, which is the warning not to do it. Rather, it is the warning to someone who's trying to make a whole city go to Avodah Zarah. Now, based on what we're saying here, you cannot cause someone else to say Avodah Zarah. This supports the ruling of Shmuel's father, the Amar Avu ad Shmuel, where Shmuel's father said, "Asur la'adam she'aseh shutafut im ha'oveh kochavim." You're not allowed to become a partner with a goy. Why? Shelo yitchayev lo shvuah, because you don't want to cause him to make a promise. V'nishba' b'kochavim shelo, because then he'll make a swear in the name of his avodah zarah. V'hatorah amara, and it says lo yishma picha. You should not cause the guy or anybody to say avodah zarah. So this is a halacha that you're not going to go in partnership with a guy, because you might make him you might make him swear in the name of his avodah zarah. So everyone's going to say, "What are you talking about? Today we have partnership with goyim." So halacha is as follows. Nowadays, this matter is treated more leniently, as most goyim believe in one God, and they use God's name in their oaths. Since most goyim are doing this today, you don't have that concern that they will swear in their avodah zarah. Okay, so on Shabbat came the topic again, famously, what is the status of Christianity? Right? Because they have a whole trinity, a holy trinity, whatever they have. So Umar said, the poskim say Christianity is considered avodah zarah for Jews and may not be considered avodah zarah for goyim. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Listen, O Israel, Hashem is one. It says Israel. It doesn't say, listen, O Christians, or listen, O Romans, or Americans, or whatever you want to call them. So perhaps for them it's not avodah zarah, because in essence they believe in there is a one God. They just understand it as being three different parts, which is for us going to be avodah zarah, but maybe not for them. So they're allowed to go into business with them. They're not avodah zarah. What would be if you would know someone is of a different faith, where they actively believe in avodah zarah, and he swears on avodah zarah's name, then it probably would still be asur, right? Because you're not allowed to cause someone else to say avodah zarah. Let's say avodah zarah name. Okay, fine. Let's continue a little bit more. Ki ata ula bat bekal nevo. Once Ula spent a night in the town of Kal Nevo. Amar Rava. Rava said to him, Where did you spend the night? I spend it in Kal Nevo. Amalei said to him, how could you say this word Kal Nevo? That's the name of Avodah Zarah, and we learned you're not allowed to say the names of Avodah Zarah. Amalei, so Ula said to him, I'm allowed to say it. Why? Achi Amar Rabbi Yohanan. Kol Kochavim Haktuva b'Torah. Mutar lahaskir Shema. Anything, any Avodah Zarah that's mentioned in the Torah is allowed to be mentioned. So Baal Peor, Moilech, whatever other names Avodah Zarah is mentioned in the Torah, it's allowed to be mentioned by an individual as well. Now, why would this be? Why would this be? So I'm going to read to you from the Masechta Gemara. It gives three opinions. Second one, I think, is the most outstanding, very hard to comprehend. But let's start. Reason why you're allowed to say the name of the Zara that's mentioned in Torah, Nemru Kamadrachim. There are a couple of ways to understand this. Shikivan Shiskarta Torah, since it's mentioned in the Torah and it's permitted to learn the Torah, so it's permitted to say it at any time. Meaning, it's in the Torah. Once it's in the Torah matters it. Chida says a very interesting idea. Chiyavir al derech hasay. He says a pikabala. She kensha tamhu. Kiwa sheyesh lebar ma'avodah zara et nitzitzot kedusha hatomanim ba. Uvaskarat shema mo'il levarim kimevo bezohar. He says based on the Zohar that these avodah zaras is mentioned in the Torah. When you say their names from the Torah, you're taking away their nitzitzot kedusha and you're bringing it out. Somehow avodah zara. Now, this probably goes with the approach that we mentioned earlier from Shimon Bar Yochai and the Ramban, which is that Avodah Zarah originally initiated as a good thing, right? They were trying to serve Hashem's ministers, right? Eventually, it went off the rails, right? And that would be a problem. But apparently, there are nitzitzot kedusha in them, and therefore, if you say them, you're helping the sparks of kedusha come out of them. Again, this is a Zohar. It's very hard to understand. But that's the opinion of the Chidah, based on the Zohar. The third opinion, which is I think the easiest of opinions, is that the truth is the name of the Torah for that Avodah Zarah is not even its real name, right? And the Torah already gave it a fake name, and it's just saying the name, and it's not a godly name for the Avodah Zarah, and so therefore it is permissible because the name is already a fake name. That's the way I understood the base of it. So you have your three opinions. A, since the Torah says it becomes mutter to say it. B, Torah says it because it takes the Netzitzot Kedusha, it takes the sparks of Kedusha out of it. No idea what that means. And the third opinion, that in the Torah it's already mentioned in a way that's not actually Avodah Zarah. Therefore, it's permissible to say it. Okay, so that's what he answered. So he said, because it's mentioned in the Torah. Gemara says, and where is it written in the Torah? Kara bel kores nevo. Baal squats, nevo splashes. So when he says bekal nevo, it's based on this pasuk. Kara bal kores nevo. Ve'ilo ktivalo. And if the name is not written, is it still not permitted to say it? But Mativ Ramesharshia, Ramesharshia said, we have a Mishnah in Zavim. שהן שתי תפילות ושני, הרי זה גזב גמור. It teaches a halacha about a zav, right? So a zav gets a certain tuma, has a certain gonorrheal type of discharge, spiritual gonorrhea that comes out, and if he gets it a few times, he becomes a zav gadol, right? So the Mishnah was saying that if he has such a huge discharge, it comes out for a very long time, he becomes a zav gadol right away. And to explain it, it says like traveling from Migadyon to Shiloh. Now, Gadyon, God, is a name of Avodah Zarah. So how could you mention it? It's not mentioned in the Torah. So I'm going to be not. No, it is mentioned. God nami michtav ketiv. Also mentioned in the Torah. Dichsev, because it says ha'orchim legad shulchan. For it's written, who set a table for God. That's in Yeshaya. And so it is mentioned in Tanakh. Therefore, it was allowed to be mentioned in the Mishnah. We're going to end up with one last piece. Amar Reb Nachman, Rav Nachman said, Kol litzunuta asira, all mockery is forbidden. Chutz miletzanuta de'avuk chavim d'sharia. The only time you're allowed to mock something is mocking of avodah zarah. Then you're allowed to make fun of it. Because it says kara bal koros nevo. The pasuk we just saw. Bal squats nevo squashes. What is it talking about? Kasu charu yachtav v'yichlu maleh misa. You're making fun of them that they can't use the bathroom. Like they're such so constipated, these avodah zarah. It says the brule egalot bet aven yigoru shechen shomran ki aval alav amo uchomarav alav yagilu. Its nation will mourn it, but its priests will rejoice over it. Al kevodo gilam imenu. Don't say rejoice. Al tikeh kevodo ela kevedo. Rather read its burden. And the priest will try to make it unconstipated. Again, trying to make fun of avodah zarah. Making fun of avodah zarah is permissible. No other types of making fun of stuff is not permissible. Okay. Let's just see if there are any halachot that came out that we need to review that we haven't talked about yet. Okay, let's see. Everything on this page. One who worships idol unwittingly in a manner that does not involve an action is exempt from bringing an offering. So when you serve a avodah zarah, unwittingly, b'shogeg, without an action, then you do not bring a qurban, right? You need to have you have to have done a service with an action in order to bring a qurban. One who takes an oath in the name of Hashem and another avodah zarah is uprooted from the world, says the Rambam. But the opinion of Shimon Bar Yochai. One does not receive lashes for transgressing a prohibition that includes several varied actions. A general prohibition, in the opinion of Rabbi Avin. Okay, start with these. If one worships an idol in an honorable manner that expresses affection, but it's not its typical form of worshiping that idol, and is also not one of the sacrificial rites performed in the temple, he transgresses where it says, don't worship them. Nevertheless, he does not receive lashes, as there is no explicit prohibition in the Torah that refers specifically to this case, right? So when it's a general prohibition, you cannot give makot. It has to have said, don't do this, and then you get makot if a person would do that. One does not receive lashes for transgressing a prohibition that does not involve an action. This excludes one who takes a false oath or an oath in vain. This is, again, not an action. Just speaking is not an action. Therefore, he would not have to bring a korban, did it by accident. Okay. Over here, we mentioned it's forbidden for mentioning the name of an idol to another person. It's like telling away from me by this idol. That is also forbidden. The name of idol is mentioned in the Torah may be mentioned in the opinion of Yochanan. One is permitted to mock idol worship. The Shulchan Aruch says like that. You're there, 147. Okay, Rabotai, this is for today. Unless there are any questions.
Where did we stop?
Say again.
What page did we stop?
We're on 63b2. Right at the bottom. Amara B'Yitzchak. The bottom one. All right. Yashir Koach. Shavua Tov L'Kulam. Toda Rabba.
Thank you. I sent you Zell. You received it?
Yeah.
Before
Yeah,
Rosh
I did.
Hashanah.
Yes,
All right,
I saw it.
thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. Shavua Tov. Toda Rabba.